The child's crying echoed through the ravine before Marcus saw him. A small Litheri boy trapped on a crumbling ledge 15 meters above jagged rocks, tiny hands gripping stone that fractured with each movement. Doctor. Marcus Webb didn't think. He secured his climbing gear and crossed the gap, every step careful, hyper-aware that the ledge might collapse entirely. The boy spoke rapid Litheri through his tears. Marcus caught maybe one word in 5 with his limited language skills, but fear was universal. "Hey, it's okay," Marcus said softly, calm and hopefully sounding soothing regardless of comprehension. "I've got you." He got the harness around the small body. The child couldn't weigh more than 20 kilos, and carried him back to solid ground just as the ledge gave way completely, crashing into the ravine below. The boy clung to him, sobbing into Marcus's jacket. He had the distinctive pointed ears of the Litheri species, skin with that faint silver undertone their people carried, and was probably 6 by human developmental standards. Marcus checked for injuries, scrapes, and bruises, nothing serious, and tried to figure out where the child had come from. Before he could decide on next steps, crashing sounds announced a Litheri search party. 6 adults, clearly frantic, who froze when they saw Marcus holding the boy. He carefully set the child down. The boy ran to what was obviously his family, a woman who swept him up with desperate relief. Marcus expected gratitude, maybe. Instead, they took the child and left without a word. He stood alone in the clearing, slightly stung but understanding cultural differences. The Litheri were reserved, kept mostly to themselves despite decades of human presence on Varus Prime. He returned to his xenobotany samples, thinking that was the end of it. 3 days later, small footsteps approached Marcus's field station. The boy he'd rescued stood there, alone, looking nervous but determined. "Dr. Webb." The child's standard was accented but careful. "My mother wants to meet you." Marcus blinked, surprised the kid knew his name. "Your mother. She says thank you for saving me. She wants to say it herself." The boy delivered this with the solemnity of a formal invitation, then added more quietly, "And I wanted to say thank you too. I was scared." "You're welcome, I'm glad you're safe." Marcus crouched to the boy's level. "What's your name?" "Renshaw." The child smiled shyly. "Will you come? My mother is important. She doesn't ask to meet humans usually." Curiosity and apprehension mixed equally. Meeting with Litheri leadership was rare for humans. "Of course." Renshaw led him through the forest, chattering nervously about the rescue, clearly embarrassed about needing saving but grateful nonetheless. The Litheri settlement emerged from the trees, organic architecture blending with massive trunks, far more sophisticated than reports suggested. Renshaw brought him to the largest dwelling. A woman emerged, and Marcus recognized authority immediately. She carried herself with unmistakable leadership presence, tall even by Litheri standards, wearing robes marked with silver threading that indicated high status. Her pointed ears were decorated with silver bands, her expression composed but her eyes intense. "I am Sirenai, council leader of the Eastern Territories," she said in flawless standard, "and you saved my son's life. I wanted to thank you properly." What Marcus expected to be brief formal acknowledgement became extended conversation. Sirenai invited him inside, significant honor in Litheri culture, he'd learn later, and they talked while Renshaw played nearby, occasionally interjecting enthusiastic rescue details. Marcus downplayed his actions. Anyone would have helped. It wasn't particularly dangerous. He was just glad Renshaw was safe. Sirenai watched him with intensity that made him self-conscious. "You risked your life," she said quietly. "The ledge collapsed moments after you reached safety. If you had hesitated, if you had considered danger to yourself first." She didn't finish. The meaning was clear. She asked about his work, his reasons for being on Varus Prime, his life before this posting. Marcus found himself talking freely. Something about her genuine interest made him comfortable. She shared information about Litheri culture, but also personal details. raising Renzhal alone after her bonded partner died years ago, balancing leadership with motherhood, the loneliness of making decisions affecting thousands. The vulnerability surprised Marcus, seemed almost improper from someone of her status. As he prepared to leave, Sirenai asked, "Would you consider visiting again? Renzhal has been asking about you, and I believe cultural exchange benefits both our peoples." The invitation felt both formal and personal. Marcus agreed, intrigued despite himself. The visits became regular, weekly, ostensibly to teach Renzhal about human culture and learn literary traditions. But conversations with Sirenai extended long after Renzhal lost interest and wandered off to play. They discussed everything: philosophy, child-rearing, challenges of their respective responsibilities, small joys that made difficult lives bearable. Marcus learned Sirenai's position was precarious. Some literary leadership distrusted human presence. She walked a political tightrope maintaining cooperation. His rescue of Renzhal complicated things. She was personally grateful, but it increased visibility on human literary interactions. One evening, after Renzhal had fallen asleep and they sat on her terrace watching twin moons rise, Sirenai admitted quietly, "When they told me my son was in danger, when I thought I might lose him, I've never felt so helpless. And when I learned a human saved him, I didn't know what to feel. Gratitude, yes, but also fear. What would you expect in return? What leverage had I given?" She looked at him directly. "You've never asked for anything. Never leverage what you did for advantage. That's rare in any species." Marcus didn't know how to respond. "I just did what anyone should do." "Not everyone would have. You did, that means something." She hesitated, then added more softly, "It means something to me." The moment stretched, charged with something Marcus couldn't name. Eventually he excused himself, walking back to the outpost under twin moons, wondering when exactly gratitude became something more complicated, and why he looked forward to these visits with an intensity that had nothing to do with cultural exchange, and everything to do with Sirenai's rare smile when he made her laugh. Renzhal had given him a message 3 weeks ago: "My mother wants to meet you." What Marcus hadn't expected was that meeting her would become the most important part of his life on this world, and that a simple act of kindness would grow into something neither human nor literary had anticipated: trust, admiration, and the dangerous beginning of connection.